Ghost with Cats, Chapter 14, Seeing Her Differently. Tall was putting another log on the fireplace when Bourne stopped her from chewing her knuckle raw. Annie was surprised when he placed her coffee cup, refilled, back in her hand and nodded for her to continue. What happened then? She took a big, deep breath and began again. Only Hadif escaped me. The coward took the bomb and fled when he heard his friends' screams as I stabbed him to death. Shiko Peer and Aji, who was barely 11, their men, and a Mossad agent named Isaac, found me sitting by the gate, half naked and bloody, and armed for bear, as Daddy would say. When I told them what happened, we chased down Hadif, but he threw the case down a test drill bore. He said if he could not have the money, he would destroy the wealth of his people and their holy land with it. Isaac made him tell me the resonance frequencies he chose and the components he used, and that was when I realized the bomb he made would blow up the planet. Hadif confessed he and his friends always intended for the bomb to be used. They'd put a radioactive metal in place of an alkali one, so it was exponentially more powerful. It was like he didn't understand what he was doing. He didn't understand the application. Annie stopped and sipped her coffee. She never stopped staring at the fire as she spoke, wishing it would warm her, or just her face. She felt cold, like that night in the hole, so far down she couldn't see the opening or the sky. Her tears burned but no longer fell. I asked him how he could do it. Didn't he know he'd killed the whole world? He didn't even care. He just laughed and bragged that at least he'd had one virgin before his death. She swallowed the coffee, the cup trembling in her hands. He just laughed about raping me, she repeated. O'Peer struck him across the face and cursed the day he was born. A whole bunch of other people showed up, including General Fenton, and I volunteered to go down and disarm the bomb. The hole was about 1 meter across and over 1,000 meters deep, but by chance it narrowed and jogged, and the case got caught less than 400 feet down. It was pure damn luck. If Hadif had run to a different hole, we wouldn't have been able to reach the bomb in time. It was mid-morning when they started dropping me down that hole, and after sunset when they pulled me out. I had the case, the timer was off, but I had radiation poisoning. I was seeing spots and half blind. They couldn't let anyone close to me, I was so radioactive. I couldn't even vomit anymore. I put the bomb in the lead-lined drum and sealed it. People in radiation suits were trying to talk to me, but all I could hear was the ringing of bells. I honestly believed it was my last Christmas Eve. I wasn't going to live a day beyond 23, but at least I would see my parents in heaven. When I looked up at the sky, I saw the holy star and swirling lights like angels dancing. Then I fainted. She took another deep breath and shook her head. They knew what she did now, that she didn't die. They didn't know she wished for so long she'd died that night, that she wanted several times to kill herself, but she didn't because of her faith. She hated the person that Christmas made her, a person who barely existed, trapped by her fears. The person who'd been a world-traveling adventurer was gone, and in her place, a pathetic coward who could barely leave her home or hotel to teach a 3-hour college course every few months a year, without enough mace in her pocket to disperse a riot. She was a ghost who became a ghostwriter. She needed to go on because Tall wanted to know about his brother, Drew. When I woke up the first time, your brother was standing at the foot of my bed, and the whole room was glowing. I thought I was hallucinating. When I woke up again, Isaac and O'Peer introduced me to him as Regent Vance True, a visitor from another world who had come to make sure the weapon was not used. He thanked me for my courage after all that had happened to me, and told me I was special, a light among my people. He told me not to be afraid that I would die, to have courage to face the life that had been returned to me. Then he bowed and left, and I never saw him again. Later, Isaac said he was an Elohim, and that he had mostly healed me. After it all, Isaac left Mossad and became a rabbi like his eldest brother Jacob. Every day for a month, Opir or Aji came to read to me, while my eyes finished healing. Sometimes Isaac or his niece Sharon came. When I was released from the hospital, I spent over a year with them. They became my new family. Sharon had lost her husband almost 2 years earlier, and we became best friends as we grieved together. Finally, I came home, and the anxiety attacks began. I couldn't make myself leave Grandpa Dove's ranch, and I built a new house with my settlement. It's a fortress with 3 panic rooms. My bedroom is in an underground bunker that's an old fallout shelter. She sounded so ashamed of herself, it shocked them. She rubbed the tear salt off the back of her hand, pressing her fist against her lips for a moment. Every year I make myself come here and face it. The first year, Sharon helped me pack the decorations and clean up the bloody cat prints and throw away the police tape. Then she took me back to Texas. I began writing an alternate story copy of the book she read with me while my eyes healed, just for something to do. And since Sharon was a publisher, she got me a job as a ghostwriter, she concluded. Her voice was completely empty, as if she had run out of feelings. She swallowed the last gulp of her coffee. This is the first year I've decorated. What happened to Hadif? Vorn asked quietly. He was beheaded as a traitor and an infidel. Before his death, he knew his own granddaughter disowned him and adopted me, restoring my honor. And the Oman even declared me a heroine for defending their people, then saving their holy land. First for refusing to help with the bomb, then by disarming the one they made. All 6 of his companions were declared infidels too. They were very wealthy, from good families, and they just wanted more money. They each had more money than most people see in a lifetime, 10 lifetimes. But it wasn't enough. She shook her head in disbelief. In their faith, women aren't supposed to raise their hands against men. But I was pardoned for their deaths, since I saved millions of their people. Billions if you count the whole world. Annie shrugged deeper into the afghan. She always felt so spent at the end, so cold like the ice water was still being poured on her. So now you know the truth about my shame and my fear. You know why I can barely tolerate being around my own people. Why I freak out and have panic attacks. Why I ended up in the desert with you. Pandora is an evil that just keeps killing. My parents weren't the first, and they won't be the last. She looked over at the spot on the floor in front of the fireplace. Sometimes she could still see her mother's blood. A final tear ran down her cheek as she waited for the judgments to come like they always did. Her anxiety reminded her, there's no sympathy for survivors in this world. You knew that before you were one. She heard a slight sound and was surprised to notice Tall kneeling before her. He carefully wiped her tear away. You have nothing to feel shame for, Lady Annie. You have overcome a great trial, an act of war against your very soul, and won. I would pray for an army as courageous and strong as you. You have every right to hate or fear every creature you meet, and yet you act daily with compassion and courage. It is amazing, Vorn declared. I am glad my brother met you and healed you. I am glad I was blessed to meet you. I am sorry to break my promise, but I cannot look at you the same way I did before I heard your story, because now I admire you much more than I did before, Tall stated in an odd tone. She looked at him like he had lost his mind. Vorn rose from a chair and went to the window. Outside, Breeze was still splitting firewood. It is good that Breeze did not listen. He would only hear your pain and not your triumph. A raging sword pet is useful in battle, but would be a problem here in the wilderness. You are truly remarkable, Lady Annie, to overcome such adversity and still help strangers such as us. Some day you must tell me how Isaac knew the ancient name of our people. Every day your world becomes more fascinating to me. Annie just sat there. She felt relieved to tell the story without being judged or pitied. It was weirdly liberating. They didn't think she was a monster. No one had ever reacted to her story like that, except those few who had been there and seen the truth of her horror. Thank y'all for being okay with it, she responded quietly, looking down into her empty cup. The bottom said, happiness is a full cup. She'd poured out her cup of pain and been offered encouragement to refill it with, instead of judgment. For the first time in years, she actually felt like she was starting to heal. She watched the fireplace. It felt warm on her face. At some point after she told her story to Tal and Vorn. She must have fallen asleep because she woke up to the afternoon sunshine pouring in the windows. The golden sun peeked through the snow-covered cedars and pines to reach the tall panes of glass that held out the cold air and framed one of the twin peaks. She had a second throw across her and the gray tabby from down the hill was on her feet. Herlinda's big black and white cat pressed its black nose on her cheek. Tall was sitting in a chair, reading her mother's Bible. He was at the very end. He was frowning. "The Revelation?" she asked softly. "It is very confusing," he answered. "It was meant to be. Perhaps you should start at the beginning," she suggested. Then the phone rang. She stared at it. It stopped and started again. Carefully she rose and answered it in a strange voice. "Hola, Miss Annie's house." "Hey, it's Carl Clark from Town Center Shops. Is Miss Dove there?" "No, sir. Miss Annie not home. Can she call you, Mr. Clark?" "No. Look, just tell her some weird guys were just here and wanted to know if she was in here last night. Scary government types. Okay?" "Sure, Mr. Clark. I'll tell Miss Annie. Adios." Then she hung up on him. She turned to Vorn and Tall. "Grab our bags now. We're flushed. Get Brace." Annie ran upstairs to her loft and quickly changed, wrapping her braces around her feet, hiding them under 2 pairs of socks and her oversized snow boots. She rushed back downstairs. Vorn was loading the rover. Breeze was walking the perimeter with her rifle. Tall was scanning from the balcony. Someone had put out the fire. He Googled the New Mexico Tourism Bureau and printed out a tour of lights for Santa Fe brochure and left it on the printer. She booked a hotel room there as well. She grabbed her laptop, the Christmas gifts, and they left. It all took less than 5 minutes. They stopped at the old church halfway down the mountain and switched to the Jeep. Annie had paid the local mechanic Jorge to get it in good running order and replace all 4 tires. Jorge tinted the rear windows and fueled it. He'd even gotten her false registration and plates. She left the Rover's keys in the donation box. It would look like her maid had fled after getting Carl's call. She hoped he wouldn't get into too much trouble. She sent a text from her burner cell. "Wolves arriving early." It immediately replied, "Gate key, 6-day year. You left a paw print." Annie started driving. They passed several government and law enforcement vehicles as they drove north. Soon they turned west into the setting sun and evening traffic over the pass. Vorn listened to their communication bands through her laptop as they drove. She does have all the best toys, as she calls them, Vorn thought. "You are correct, Lady Annie. The young man Carl warned us just in time. They have your house surrounded and believe you left earlier today. They questioned him and are looking for your maid. They are setting up roadblocks in the other direction. I am surprised they found us in such a remote location," Vorn stated. "They found us 'cause I was stupid," Annie revealed bitterly, holding the text message for Tall to read. He didn't understand the first part, but the second part was clear. He groaned. "At the antique store, you used a card with your real name," Tall said, shaking his head. "I am at fault as well. I should have remembered. I used my alias all day, then I got distracted. It will be okay. My mother's friends will let us use their retreat. We only need to get there, and to let your crew know we are just west of the original coordinates. Or we can head south to my great uncle's beach house in Texas. It will take 26 hours if we drive straight through. Y'all's choice, Admit, she offered. Tall could tell from her tone she was angry with herself. She'd had a stressful day. Tall folded his arms, thinking they were 3 days from contact and 6 or more from retrieval. Better to stay hidden as long as possible, and as close to the original retrieval area as they could. He could always summon his flyer's pilot to him once they were through the atmosphere. Traveling in unfamiliar territory increased the risk of ambush, but it could offer limited safety. We stay hidden here. The Texas house will be a last resort. We could even return to Kachara to be retrieved. They might not be expecting such an action. He wondered about the nature of their enemy, that they found them in less than a day. It showed great determination and resources. As you wish. We'll be there in a few hours. Hope y'all like hot springs, Annie answered. What are hot springs? Tall asked. Annie just grinned at him.